Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Hello, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are the top stories tonight.
The Philippines will never cooperate with any investigation to be initiated by the International Criminal Court into the government's anti-illegal drugs campaign, that according to Malacanang today.
The WHO warned that COVID-19 was moving faster than the vaccines and said the G7's vow to share 1 billion doses with poorer nations was simply not enough.
A colossal fire at a U.S. chemical plant sent pluming flames into the air and emitted a column of thick black smoke hundreds of feet high.
And Alan and Eva Basalyahe takes us to the first day of the E3 Expo.
The Philippines will never cooperate with any investigation to be initiated by the International Criminal Court into the government's anti-illegal drugs campaign, that according to Malacanang today. In a press briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippine government will not cooperate with any ICC probe because the country is no longer a member of the Hague-based body. Take a look.
Hindi po natin kinakailangan ang mga dayuhan na mag-imbestiga ng patayan dahil sa drug war, dahil gumagana po ang sistemang legal sa Pilipinas, merong mga piskal at merong mga hukumang naglilitis at nagparusa na. Sinabi na po ng ating presidente, hindi tayo magko-cooperate dahil hindi na tayo miyembro ng ICC. Kung sila ay magsasampa ng kaso, ang basihan ng ebidensya lamang nila ay ebidensya na ibinigay ng kaliwa na siyang pumapatay din ng ordinaryong mamamayan, gaya na nangyari doon sa football player, dyan po sa kailan lang po ang pangyayari. Yang mga patayan ng NPA, yan ang dapat tinitignan ng ICC, hindi ang patayan dahil po sa isang valid and legitimate exercise of police powers, the war against drug. Sasayangin lang nilang panahon, sasayangin lang nilang resources ng hukuman dahil without cooperation from the Philippine state, hindi naman makakabuo ng kaso kung hindi base sa ebidensya na hearsay at galing mismo sa mga komunista at politikong kalaban ng presidente. Which brings me to the last point. Sino ba naghain niyang kasong yan? Hindi ba ngayon gustong tumakbo ng presidente o vice-presidente? Hindi ba politika ang dahilan kung bakit isinampa ang kasong yan? At politika rin ang dahilan kung bakit si Prosecutor Bersuda ay nagsampa. Dahil ang pula sa kanya, ang kinakasuhan lang niya, mga kapwa-Aprikano niya, kinakailangan niya magkaso ng hindi Aprikano para patunayan na hindi totoo na kaya lang niya magsampa ng kaso sa kapwa-Aprikano niya. And good luck to her political career in her home state, pero not at the expense of Presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Insulto po kasi sa lahat ng Pilipino para sa isang dayuhan gaya ni Bersurda at para sa kapwa Pilipino na magsabi na yung mga legal institution natin sa Pilipinas ay hindi gumagana at hindi nagbibigay katarungan. Insulto po yan. Mako-compare tayo sa mga country gaya ng Darfur, yung mga lugar na wala talagang gumaganang gobyerno. Hindi.
Now, the Duterte administration's drug campaign has been under preliminary examination of the Office of the Prosecutor since February of 2018. Manila cut ties with the ICC after Bersuda in February 2018 pushed through with the preliminary examination of the communication filed by lawyer Jude Sabio before the International Tribunal. Sabio's communication accused Duterte of perpetrating crimes against humanity for thousands of alleged extrajudicial killings of drug suspects since the anti-narcotics drive was launched on July 1, 2016 until March 31, 2017, but he eventually dropped the communication he filed before the International Tribunal. In June, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara announced the creation of an interagency panel that will reinvestigate the drug-related killings.
Staying here in the Philippines, President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday directed the Philippine National Police, the Department of Tourism, and all local government units to enforce stringent compliance of protocols for local tourism and arrest those who present fake negative COVID-19 test results. In a public address on Monday night, Duterte told government agencies not to be afraid to file sanctions against travelers presenting falsified COVID-19 results or test results following recent reports of tourists arriving in various parts of the country, most notably in Boracay, where were caught with fake reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction or RT-PCR tests. Take a look.
I am also directing the Department of Tourism, the Philippine National Police, and all local government to arrest those presenting fake tests and enforce strict compliance on protocols of local tourism. Do not be afraid to file sanctions.
On June 9, 4 more tourists bound for Boracay Island in Malay Aklan were caught with counterfeit coronavirus tests and QR codes at Tabon Port in Caticlan. Before a tourist can secure the QR code, they first have to comply with the requirements to include negative RT-PCR results taken 72 hours before travel, hotel reservation from establishments accredited by the DOT, travel details, government-issued ID, and registration with the S-Pass or Safe, Swift, and Smart Passage online travel system.
In the country, the National Capital Region, or NCR Plus, composed of Metro Manila, Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, and Cavite, will remain under GCQ, or General Community Quarantine, until the end of June. That according to President Duterte, announcing that last night. And in his weekly talk to the people, the President said Metro Manila and Bulacan would be placed under GCQ with some restrictions. Let's listen in.
Meanwhile, in other news, NOVAVAX's COVID-19 jab is more than 90% effective, including against coronavirus variants, the vaccine maker said after a large-scale U.S. study. The jab demonstrated 100% protection against moderate and severe disease, 90.4% efficacy overall, the company said in a statement, adding the study enrolled 29,960 participants across 119 sites in the U.S. and Mexico to evaluate efficacy, safety, and immunogenicity. The Maryland headquartered company said it intended to apply for regulatory approval by the third quarter of 2021. After that, it said it would be on course to make 100 million doses per month by the end of the third quarter and 150 million doses per month by the end of the year.
The WHO warned that COVID-19 was moving faster than the vaccines and said the G7's vow to share 1 billion doses with poorer nations was simply not enough. Take a look.
Globally, the number of new cases of COVID-19 reported to WHO has now declined for 7 weeks in a row, which is the longest sequence of weekly declines during the pandemic so far. While weekly cases are at their lowest since February, deaths are not falling as quickly. The number of deaths reported last week was similar to the previous week, and the global decline masks a worrying increase in cases and deaths in many countries. The steep increase in Africa is especially concerning because it's the region with the least access to vaccines, diagnostics, and oxygen. Available evidence suggests new variants have substantially increased transmission globally. That means the risks have increased for people who are not protected, which is most of the world's population. Right now, the virus is moving faster than the global distribution of vaccines.
While people in many wealthy nations are enjoying a return to a sense of normalcy thanks to high vaccination rates, the shots remain scarce in less well-off parts of the world. In terms of doses administered, the imbalance between the G7 and low-income countries, as defined by the World Bank, is 73-1. Many of the donated G7 doses will be filtered through COVAX, a global body charged with ensuring equitable vaccine distribution. Run by the WHO, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, and CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, it has to date shipped more than 87 million vaccine doses to 131 countries, far fewer than anticipated.
In other news, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday announced a 4-week delay to the full lifting of coronavirus restrictions in England due to a surge in infections caused by the Delta variant. Here's Patricia Rodriguez for the report. Patricia.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday announced a 4-week delay to the full lifting of coronavirus restrictions in England due to a surge in infections caused by the Delta variant. The delay comes as a blow to Johnson's plans to fully reopen the UK economy on June 21 after months of gradually easing restrictions since March. Newspapers had been counting down to what had been dubbed Freedom Day, which was set to mark an end to all social distancing restrictions. But Johnson said a sharp rise in infections had prompted a decision to ease off the accelerator and focus instead on ramping up vaccinations. Let's listen in on Boris Johnson's most recent announcement.
And that's why we're so concerned by the Delta variant that is now spreading faster than the third wave that was predicted in the February roadmap. We're seeing cases growing by about 64% per week, and in the worst affected areas, it's doubling every week. And the average number of people being admitted to hospital in England has increased by 50% week on week and by 61% in the northwest, which may be the shape of things to come. And so we've obviously faced a very difficult choice. We can simply keep going with all of step 4 on June the 21st, even though there is a real possibility that the virus will outrun the vaccines and that thousands more deaths would ensue that could otherwise have been avoided. Or else we can give the NHS a few more crucial weeks to get those remaining jabs into the arms of those who need them.
The more transmissible Delta variant, first identified in India, is now responsible for 96% of UK cases, and positive tests have jumped 50% in the last week. Total reported cases are now at their highest since Feb, around 8,000 new infections a day. Nevertheless, hospital admissions and deaths remained low, thanks in large part to Britain's rapid vaccination rollout. To date, more than 55% of adults in the UK have now had 2 vaccine jabs. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Patricia Rodriguez. We live in interesting times.
Capitol. Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Factual,
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
timely information, balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas, a one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to Thanks our help outdoor
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
All right, a colossal fire at a U.S. chemical plant sent fuming flames into the air and emitted a column of thick black smoke hundreds of feet high. Everyone within a 1-mile radius of the Chem Tool facility in Illinois was told to evacuate the area. The company, a subsidiary of chemicals plant Lubrizol, said no one was hurt in the fire at the factory on the outskirts of Rockton, about 80 miles northwest of Chicago, which makes industrial fluids and greases. Rockton Police Department said at 8 p.m. Monday local time, Fire Chief Wilson said emergency services were monitoring for any spillage of the Rock River, which runs past the factory site. It added that anyone within a 3-mile radius should wear a protective mask when outside. Sandra Martel, Public Health Administrator for Winnebago County, said the mask advice was to mitigate against any particulate matter given off by the blaze. Headquartered in Ohio, Lubrizol is owned by American billionaire Warren Buffett. 2 years ago, one of its French plants was also ravaged by a huge fire.
In other news, China said Tuesday radiation levels remained normal at one of its nuclear power plants and there were no safety concerns after the station's French operator reported a gas buildup. Take a look.
特區政府係高度重視嘅。事實上，我哋持續咧都係有呢個嘅監察嘅制度嚇，監察香港環境裏邊嘅核嘅情況咧，係由唔同嘅部門嚟到一齊做啊。當然咧，最重要嘅係香港嘅天文台啦。咁但係其他嘅部門，譬如水務署啊，我哋都要監察喺香港嘅水塘啊，有冇出現超標嘅情況啦。咁到昨晚嚇，因為應該昨晚都作咗個政府嘅回應咧，係一切係正常嘅。 一切係符合標準係正常嘅嚇。咁
Sounds indeed like there has been a very minor leak. That looks like something that's been mentioned and confirmed on the Chinese side in the Chinese media, as well as in the memo that was seen by CNN and that was reviewed by the U.S. government. To the extent that we should be concerned about it, it really doesn't look like there's much cause for concern. And when, you know, minor is a relative word, right? What does minor mean? But in this case, we have a number that shows, you know, if you get what 1/10,000% of your annual dose limit, it is really a very, very tiny incident. And what it does suggest is that there was a faulty water seal or a malfunctioning piece of equipment, which is something that you might want to, you know, for example, consult with colleagues in other offices around the world. Stress, and this is what nobody wants to hear and nobody likes to think about, but minor incidents happen in plants all over the world all the time. The national regulators, they have a record of it. If you want to, you know, go read it and make yourself feel scared at night and you want to have trouble sleeping, you can go read about all the minor incidents that happen.
The probe comes after CNN reported that the U.S. government was assessing a report of a leak at the TAISHAN power station. The report was made by Framatome, the EDF business that designed the plant's reactor and remains involved in its operations. Framatome warned that the plant, a joint venture with China General Nuclear Power Group that is located around 200 kilometers from Hong Kong, was facing an imminent radiological threat. The Chinese operator of the power station, state-owned China General Nuclear Power Group, had said in a Sunday statement that the environmental indications of Taishan nuclear power plant and its surroundings are normal, without referencing any incident at the station. CGN, China's largest state-owned nuclear company, was placed on a U.S. blacklist in August 2019 for allegedly making efforts to acquire advanced U.S. technology and material for diversion to military uses in China. That means that Framatome, which has operations in the United States, would need a waiver from the U.S. government to allow it to help CGN fix technological problems, Lee said. China's foreign ministry has said the blacklist is a misuse of export control measures.
Taal volcano once again generated many volcanic earthquakes for the past 24 hours, despite generating none or few in the past days. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, recorded 221 volcanic earthquakes, including 29 low-frequency volcanic quakes and 192 volcanic tremor events, having durations of 1 to 135 minutes. Low-level background tremor has persisted since April 8. It is a low-energy vibration of the ground, which can be related to fluid or gas movement. Activity at the main crater, meanwhile, was dominated by the upwelling of hot volcanic fluids in its lake, which generated plumes of 1,500 meters tall. Sulfur dioxide emission averaged 5,837 tons per day on June 14. PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum Jr. told the Philippine News Agency that the parameters indicate continued magmatic unrest underneath the volcano. It is actively degassing, as manifested by the high sulfur dioxide emission and the occurrence of volcanic tremors and earthquakes due to gas motion. Taal volcano has been under alert level 2, or increased unrest, since March 9, and the threat of phreatic eruption or steam-driven explosion persists. The public is reminded to avoid and not to go to Taal Volcano Island, as sudden steam or gas-driven explosions can occur.
Meanwhile, the trial of deposed Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi got underway yesterday, months after a military coup. A lawyer for Suu Kyi's defense team said the Nobel laureate was in good health but suffered from a toothache. Take a look.
နိုင်20လောက်မှာတရားခွင်စပါတယ်တရားခွင်မှာဒီဥပဒေမြင့်ကိုအရင်စပြီးစစ်ပါတယ်ဒီသဘာဝဘေးအန္တရာယ်ဆိုင်ရာစီမံခန့်ခွဲမှုဥပဒေပုံမှန်25နဲ့ဆွဲထားတဲ့အမှုကိုစပြီးတော့စစ်ပါတယ်နောက်ပြီးတော့သူခါတိုင်းလိုပဲတမအေးကောင်းနေဆိုပေမဲ့မေကနည်းနည်းတော့ဒီနေ့သွားလေးနည်းနည်းကိုက်နေရဆိုတာပဲပြောပါတယ်ကျန်တာကတော့လန်းဆန်းဆန်းပါပဲရှင်အရင်တိုင်းပါပဲဟိုရန်ရတာလေနော်အားလုံးကို request လုပ်ချင်တာလေဆော့ဆော့အကိုမေးတဲ့မေကွန်းလေးမထည့်ပေးပါနဲ့ရှင်နည်းနည်းကျမတို့ကပတ်နိုင်အသေးလေးတစ်လုံးကတော့ဝတ်ထားပါတယ်ရှင်တရားခွင့်မစမတွေ့ရတဲ့အချိန်60ခွန်နဲ့အမေကိုဆွဲဆိုထားတဲ့အမှုနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့တရားလို့
The junta has brought an eclectic raft of charges against the Nobel laureate, including claims she accepted illegal payments of gold and violated a colonial-era secrecy law. On Monday, the court heard a police force major testify that Suu Kyi broke coronavirus restrictions during last year's elections, that her National League for Democracy party won in a landslide. Her lawyer, Min So, told AFP. Another police major testified on separate charges accusing her of illegally importing and possessing walkie-talkies, she added. Suu Kyi's lawyers, who have struggled to gain access to their client, have said they expect the trial to wrap up by July 26.
The United States government welcomed today President Duterte's decision to postpone the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement for 6 more months. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr., who announced the chief executive's decision on Monday night, however, did not elaborate what specific aspects of the deal are being studied. Take a look.
I have just come from a meeting with the President and Ambassador Jose Romualdez on the subject of the Visiting Forces Agreement. The President conveyed to us his decision to extend the suspension of the abrogation of the Visiting Forces Agreement by another 6 months, while he studies and both sides further address his concerns regarding particular aspects of the agreement. Thank you.
In a statement sent to reporters, the U.S. Embassy in Manila said, quote, "Our alliance continues to contribute not only to the security of our two nations, but also strengthens the rules-based order that benefits all nations in the Indo-Pacific." The VFA, established in 1999, provides a framework for defense forces cooperation that allows joint exercises between the Philippines and the U.S. In February 2020, the President notified the U.S. that the Philippines would form formally terminate the agreement. Following the coronavirus outbreak, the government in June 2020 suspended the abrogation for 6 months. It was postponed for the second time in November 2020 to allow both nations to find a more enhanced, mutually beneficial, mutually agreeable, and more effective and lasting arrangement on how to move forward in our mutual defense.
In other news, President Vladimir Putin dismissed accusations that Russia was behind cyber attacks against the United States as farcical in an interview with NBC broadcast ahead of his summit with President Joe Biden. Take a look.
Самая главная ценность в международных отношениях – это стабильность и предсказуемость. Но мы со стороны, как я считаю, со стороны наших американских партнеров как раз этого и не видели в предыдущие годы. Ну, мы хорошо знаем, нас в чем-то только не обвиняли, в вмешательстве в выборы, еще там кибератаках и так далее. Причем ни одного раза не удосужились предъявить какие-то доказательства. Просто голословное обвинение.
Former Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report included detailed allegations that the Kremlin-backed Internet Research Agency used fake identities to carry out disinformation campaigns on social media and through grassroots activism. In 2019, the Senate Intelligence Committee released an 85-page report outlining a large-scale Russian effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. The Russian leader also said he was open to a prison swap with the United States. The fate of prisoners is set to be on the agenda when the President Biden and him meet in Geneva on Wednesday, and said that jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny would not be treated any worse than anybody else. Biden will attend the summit after a week of meeting allies from the G7, European Union, and NATO, with tensions between Moscow and Washington at their highest in years over a long list of disputes. U.S. President Joe Biden said Monday he would lay down red lines to his Russian counterpart. Take a look.
There need not be. We should decide where it's in our mutual interest, in the interest of the world, to cooperate and see if we can do that. And the areas where we don't agree, make it clear what the red lines are. I have met with him. He's bright. He's tough. And I have found that he is as they say, when he used to play ball, a worthy adversary.
Meanwhile, followers of the QAnon conspiracy theory may become more violent in the future as the movement's predictions fail to come true, the FBI said in an intelligence report that was released to the public on Monday. The report, which was also jointly compiled with the Department of Homeland Security and requested by New Mexico Senator Martin Heinrich, said some QAnon supporters will likely begin they can no longer trust the plan referenced in QAnon posts and that they have an obligation to change from digital soldiers towards engaging in real-world violence. Many QAnon followers refuse to believe President Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election against Trump. Multiple QAnon followers were also involved in the storming of the Capitol building on January 6 as lawmakers counted electoral votes to cement Biden's victory in last year's election. The FBI has arrested several self-identified QAnon followers who were tied to the Capitol riot. Some members of Congress, such as House Republicans Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, have pushed the QAnon theory.
Eagle News will be back with more updates.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balance. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
U.S. President Joe Biden and the EU agreed to a long-term truce in the 17-year-old Airbus-Boeing dispute Tuesday as they try to push past their own disputes and turn their focus to a rising China. Negotiated in marathon talks by EU and U.S. officials, the truce was formalized in Biden's summit with European leaders Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen, who hosted him in Brussels. Von der Leyen said the summit had delivered as she hailed a breakthrough in the long-running feud. Earlier this year, Biden and von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, had suspended retaliatory tariffs in the dispute over subsidies for the rival plane makers. The punitive measures targeted European cheese and wine and American and tobacco, among other products. The EU said the truce was set for 5 years, leaving enough time to resolve the fight while still factoring in China's growing capability in the aviation industry.
In other business news, Britain's unemployment rate dipped to 4.7% in the 3 months to the end of April as the UK economy began to emerge from its lockdown, according to official data on Tuesday. Unemployment eased from a rate of 4.8% in the first quarter. The Office for National Statistics said in a statement the jobs market is being helped also by the government's furlough scheme, paying the bulk of wages for millions of private sector workers. Data showed more employers were seeking to hire with strong growth in job offers in sectors such as hospitality as coronavirus lockdown measures began to be eased. The UK reopened non-essential retail, including restaurants and bars, in April, allowing the wider British economy to recover further from the pandemic fallout. However, on Monday, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a 4-week delay to the full lifting of coronavirus restrictions in England owing to a surge in infections caused by the Delta variant.
Meanwhile, Britain announced Tuesday a major free trade agreement with Australia as London presses on with efforts to strike new deals with nations since leaving the European Union. It follows similar UK trade deals reached with Japan and the European Union following London's divorce with Brussels. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the latest agreement marks a new dawn in the UK's relationship with Australia, underpinned by shared history and common values. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said on Twitter that the deal is an important stepping stone in efforts to join a massive free trade zone in the Indo-Pacific region, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. The UK government added that the deal eliminates tariffs on all British goods in the first major trade deal negotiated from scratch since the country left the EU. A final agreement in principle will be published in the coming days, it added.
Japan's Toshiba sought government help to try and influence a boardroom vote proposed by activist shareholders at its last regular annual general meeting, according to an independent probe published Thursday. The troubled industrial conglomerate devised a plan to effectively prevent shareholders from exercising their shareholder proposal rights and voting rights at the AGM in July 2020, according to the investigators. The meeting, at which the activist shareholders' resolutions were rejected, was not fairly managed, concluded their 140-page report. It also detailed how Toshiba had pursued an intervention from Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, which did not respond to a request for comment. Toshiba was once a symbol of Japan's advanced technology and economic power. but has lurched from scandals and losses to a recovery in recent years. In May 2020, then CEO Nobuaki Kurumantani met Yoshihide Suga, who at the time was the government's chief cabinet secretary and is now prime minister, the report alleged. Suga denied involvement on Thursday, telling reporters, quote, "I am not aware at all. There is no such thing." The probe found no evidence that Toshiba had interfered with ballots at the AGM.
In other news, an American father-son duo admitted to helping orchestrate former Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn's audacious escape from Japan as they made their first appearance before a Tokyo court yesterday. Former Special Forces operative Michael Taylor and his son Peter were extradited by U.S. authorities over allegations that they and a third man, who remains at large, smuggled Ghosn out of Japan in a music equipment case as he awaited trial. At the Tokyo District Court, the pair did not contest the facts laid out by prosecutors in an indictment, effectively conceding their role in the saga. Michael Taylor, 60 years old, was led in first to the courtroom with his hands cuffed in front of him. He wore plastic slippers, dark trousers, and a white shirt with no tie. His 28-year-old son was brought in after, with both men wearing face masks. The pair face up to 3 years in prison if convicted of helping Ghosn, currently an international fugitive living in Lebanon, which has no extradition treaty with Japan. In court, prosecutors laid out again the almost cinematic details of the operation, including that Ghosn was hidden in a large case with air holes drilled into it to slip past security at an airport. The former auto tycoon was out on bail while awaiting trial on 4 counts of financial misconduct, which he denies when he managed to slip past authorities onto a private jet, transit in Turkey, and land in Lebanon. Ghosn first hatched a plan to flee Japan 6 months before his escape, according to prosecutors, contacting Michael Taylor using a secret mobile phone after being introduced by his wife, Carol. Prosecutors said Ghosn and his wife paid the Taylors for their help through an online ad company and directly with public broadcaster NHK reporting that Peter received 144 million yen, or about $1.3 million. The Asahi Shimbun Daily said the pair spent most of the money on preparations for the escape, including the costs of chartering a private jet, claiming that they were not paid for their help.
Dubai-based Emirates Airline posted a $5.5 billion annual loss, its first in more than 3 decades, after the coronavirus pandemic devastated the aviation industry. The airline, which was forced to temporarily suspend operations last year, saw revenue fall 66% to $8.4 billion. Over the fiscal year, which ends in March, Emirates carried 6.6 million passengers, down 88% from the same period in the previous year. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a tremendous toll on human lives, communities, economies, and on the aviation and travel industry, according to the airline's chairman and chief executive, Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, in a statement. He added that the Emirates Group was hit hard by the drop in demand for international air travel as countries closed their borders and imposed stringent travel restrictions.
Meanwhile, the Veropolis project in the southern French city of Marseille has transformed the vacant offices due for demolition into temporary artist studios.
Et donc c'est vraiment bien parce qu'on paye un loyer très peu cher pour l'instant. Et ce qu'on aimerait bien, c'est que ça puisse être pérennisé, que ces baux précaires puissent en fait être plus que 12 ou 18 mois pour pouvoir vraiment bosser avec le quartier, s'installer et pas aller de beaux précaires en beaux précaires.
J'ai 12 mètres carrés, je paye 8 € le mètre carré, donc je paye 100 € le mois et c'est fabuleux. J'ai pris la plus petite surface possible, mais j'ai quand même accès en fait à l'intégralité des prestations entre guillemets, c'est-à-dire les connexions qui elles sont gratuites. On a accès aussi au 9e étage, c'est-à-dire à l'espace d'exposition.
The Commission on Elections today assured that the basic information of voter registrants using its newly launched mobile registration form app is protected. Take a look.
With this issue, the COMELEC introduced its first ever COMELEC mobile registration. This mobile reg form app is an additional tool in filling up registration form using your mobile Android phone. It doesn't require data or internet connection. Once you download or copy the mobile app from another mobile phone, then you are ready to go. An encrypted QR code is generated and stored in your phone's gallery. Once you have the QR code, the next step is to go to your respective office of the election officer, present the QR code, and printed application form will be generated. And that's it. This app is not in any way replacing our existing AIRREGISTRO, where applicant can fill up their details, print the application form in 3 copies, and choose a schedule to appear before the election officer. In fact, we encourage those with internet connection at home or in the office to use our iRegistro because it is convenient and easy to use. This mobile form registration app is conceptualized to cater applicants who have no access to internet or where internet connection is poor.
Now, Alan and Eva Batalyahe takes us to the first day of the E3 Expo. Take a look.
Hello, Eagle News viewers. E3 officially launched yesterday for the first day of its mega gaming convention, not taking place in person this year, but through the virtual platform. And whether you're an avid or casual gamer, E3 is regarded by players as the world's premier gaming expo.
Exhibitors at this year's E3 include up-and-coming development studios, hoping to garner attention to their projects, as well as companies like Xbox, Bethesda, Nintendo, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Take-Two Interactive, and Bandai Namco Entertainment, all of whom are responsible for some of the most successful AAA blockbuster games.
The virtual convention also includes special appearances from stars and commentators from the entertainment world. Fans and industry professionals who registered for this virtual E3 gaming convention are able to visit interactive booths through the E3 portal and app, meet up at the interactive lounges, view the entire live streaming broadcasts, engage in the discussion forums, and so much more. All done virtually from the comforts of one's home without having to deal with traffic going to the convention center or interact with large crowds this year.
Yesterday's official kickoff featured Ubisoft Forward, Gearbox E3, and GamesBeat. Ubisoft Forward treated viewers with both new and fan-favorite franchise titles. Try saying that 3 times fast.
Fan-favorite franchise titles, fan-favorite franchise titles, and fan-favorite franchise titles.
Okay, for those who can't keep up with tongue twisters, no worries, because what captivated our collective noggins were first looks of Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which, as a game adaptation of James Cameron's movie, is naturally an open-world game. There is also Far Cry 6, wherein this time we saw the Far Cry campaign unfold through the eyes of some of the series' notable villains.
From Nintendo, we were given Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. This isn't the first time we've seen this marvelous team-up in which gamers spanning age groups can play together. Lastly, Gearbox. The folks behind the Borderlands succession of games showed off an impressive lineup of celebrities lending their talents to voice characters for the Borderlands movie. Director Eli Roth, Kevin Hart, Edgar Ramirez, Ryan Reynolds, T-Pain, and others are among the superstar-powered recruits for this project.
Stay tuned to our broadcast for more updates on this year's E3 gaming convention. In Los Angeles, California, Eva and Alan, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
The first crew for China's new space station prepared to blast off this week for the latest step in Beijing's ambitious program to establish itself as a space power. The mission is China's first crewed space flight in nearly 5 years and a matter of prestige for the government as it prepares to mark the 100th birthday of the ruling Communist Party on July 1 with a propaganda blitz. A Long March 2F rocket carrying 3 astronauts in the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft is slated to lift off from a base in northwest China's Gobi Desert on Thursday, according to experts with knowledge of the matter. They plan to spend 3 months on the Chang'e station, China's longest crewed space mission to date, with spacewalks among other tasks. Now, the Long March rocket with the Shenzhou craft attached was moved to the launch pad at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center last week, according to the Chinese Space Agency, and Shenzhou 12 will dock with the main station or main section of the Tiangong station named Tianhe, which was placed in orbit on April 29. A cargo craft last month transported fuel, food, and equipment for the crewed mission. Another 11 missions are planned over the next year and a half to complete the construction of Tiangong in orbit, including the attachment of solar panels and 2 lab modules.
The tipping point for irreversible global warming may have already been triggered. The scientists who led the biggest ever expedition to the Arctic warned today. The disappearance of summer sea ice in the Arctic is one of the first landmines in this minefield, one of the tipping points that we set off first when we push warming too far, said Marcus Rex. And one can essentially ask if we haven't already stepped on this mine and already set off the beginning of the explosion. Rex led the world's biggest mission to the North Pole, an expedition involving 300 scientists from 20 countries. The expedition returned to Germany in October after 389 days drifting through the Arctic, bringing home devastating proof of a dying Arctic Ocean and warnings of ice-free summers in just decades. The 140 million euro expedition also brought back 150 terabytes of data and more than 1,000 ice samples.
Chris Hemsworth, decided to poke some fun at his Avengers co-star Chris Evans for the latter's 40th birthday last June 13 Sunday. Now, the Thor actor sent Evans a birthday greeting on social media, writing in the caption, "Happy 40th birthday, Chris Evans. You'll always be my #1 in my book." And he even tagged Evans, who played Captain America in the Marvel franchise. Known for his sense of humor, what he did was upload a photo of himself with another Chris. He uploaded Chris Pratt's picture, a fellow Avengers co-star who plays Star-Lord in the films. Hemsworth's fans got in on the joke as well, with one person writing, "Chris Evans looks different." Another wrote, "Come on, that's obviously Chris Pine," referring to the other Hollywood Chris, who plays Steve Trevor in the Wonder Woman movies and Captain James T. Kirk in the Star Trek films.
Happy birthday, Chris Evans! That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am TJ Hero. Please join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we
live in interesting times.
Samahan sina Wedge Kujamat,
itong balitang panggising sa ulo ng mga balita.
Apple David,
Sa 60 na